Hey, John Hickok here, filling in for my dad on this chapter 2 of the VZ24. Dad asked me to do this video because this is actually my rifle. This is one of those guns that Dad's had for a long time, just been kind of laying around, and I always kind of liked it as a kid, and he said I could have it. It's probably like around 2008, something like that. I think he gave it to me, and I gladly accepted it. It's a neat rifle. I've always liked Mausers. Didn't really know a whole lot about it when I first got it, of course. But I've since learned some things about it. And I thought maybe I would share a few of those with you and shoot some. This is a chapter 2 after all, so let's go ahead and start off shooting it. Put a stripper clip into the magazine. I believe I said that correctly, right? It feels weird to say clip because it's been such a thing, you know. Okay, but that is correct. These are stripper clips. This is a clip, and I just fed it into a magazine. Now some of these stripper clips, don't work right, but these, I'm not sure what country that these particular ones come from, but they tend to work pretty well. The shiny ones, they work. All right. I'm gonna see if I can hit the red plate on the left up there. One of the things I like about this straight bolt, which I'll talk about more in a minute, it's so easy to get a hold of. I don't really find that I have to take it off of my shoulder, even though the Mauser action cocks on open instead of closed like on the Enfield. So it's kind of nice. I guess I'll go for that one again. Go for the little one on the right. Alright. Once you hit that target, you kind of have to leave it alone for a while. Okay. Go for the one in the middle. Oh, I think I went under it. One left. All right. Yeah, it's one of the things that attracted me to this gun early on, before I even really understood much about it, was just how robust it is. Of course, the Mauser action is one of the strongest bolt actions. Still stands the test of time. You'll still see it a lot in modern bolt action rifles for hunting or whatever. Very strong, locks up in 3 places. You've got the 2 lugs here, lock up in there, and then you've got this one is kind of a backup that locks up under this kind of hood sort of apparatus. I'm not sure the proper name of that. And then of course, pull this, bolt comes out. Pretty standard Mauser. But now this is the VZ24, so that means this one is a Czechoslovakian. Laid over here on the table. This is a Czechoslovakian Mauser, which the Czechoslovakian firearms are just known to be very well made. Like the VZ58, that's a really nice gun. These are basically a G98, which is the Mauser, the German Mauser that you would have seen like in World War I. A little bit longer. This is kind of a carbine version, but this gun takes a lot from the G98. You guys can check out those videos on the channel, and also from the K98. So it kind of, at least in the opinion of me, and I think the Czechoslovakians at the time, even though Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore, I think it's the Czech Republic now, is I think what they thought is that they were getting kind of the best of both worlds, of the 98 and of the G98 and the K98, because you have the straight bolt like on the G98, which is kind of nice. It's easy to get a hold of. Now I can kind of see why they went to the curve bolt later on, tactically speaking, because maybe it's easier to get hung on something. But if you want to mount a scope on there, it might make that a little more difficult. But for just it's kind of knocking around and operating it, it makes it so easy. It's a big old thing to get a hold of. it really makes the Mosins seem like amateur hour for bolt action rifles. I mean, just so easy. And that part of that's just the Mauser action, but the straight bolt is nice. I like it. And then also it has the magazine allows for when the magazine is empty, you can just put the bolt forward, where on the like the K98 Mausers, and then I'm sure some of the others, it would get hung up right there. And the reason for that was once you went dry, you would immediately know that you're empty, which I get that obviously has some practical application for combat, I assume. But for just owning one of these and kind of messing around with it, it's kind of nice to be able to, just kind of play with it, and be able to do that kind of thing with it. And you just can't do that with the K98s. And the G98 is also like that. Just a really neat gun, very solid. Let's put another stripper clip in there. And of course, appreciate Federal, appreciate everything that they do for us, hooking us up with this good 8mm. I remember the days when I was a kid going around to gun shows and you could buy, these big bandoliers of surplus 8mm, and you just can't do that anymore. So it's kind of nice to be able to get this from Federal, their help. So, and of course, I don't want to lose these stripper clips, but what they would do, you'd load the clip in there, and then you could just ram it home, and that would just fall on the ground. All right. Let's see. I guess I'll go for a 2-liter. Knock out a bowling pin. This 8mm round, it definitely packs a punch. One left. Let's get one of these up here on the post, one of these red ones. I lied. I was actually trying to knock that. There's a big old dead limb that's been annoying me for a long time. I thought, maybe I'll knock that off first before I check out this 2-liter. Let me go ahead and do that now. There we go. That's what I meant to do. Not the first time. The first time, of course, I meant to knock out that limb back there. I got distracted. That time I just missed, I think. No, actually, look at it. It's leaking. I nicked him. See if I can finish him off. All right. We'll go back over on the hill. Shooting at the left red plate. Got it. All right. It's hard to not just keep shooting this thing. It's so much fun. I'm sure I'll get some of this information out of order. Of course, 8mm. Stick with the basics here. 8mm. Now this specific gun is Czechoslovakian. But is made in the I don't know what the correct pronunciation would be, but the Brno the BRNO factory was where this one was produced. And based on what I've read, this particular rifle, now of course the VZ-24, that stands for 1924. So that's when this basically model was first being developed. But they of course made a few changes after that. And it's nice that I'm on video. I can actually cough. I don't have to hold them back like when I'm behind the camera. That's a nice privilege of being in front of the camera. This particular gun was made. There's no way to know the exact, from what I've read, the exact date that this gun was produced, because this was ground off. The crest was ground off, and it had some extra numbers on it and stuff. But based on what I've read, this gun was made for the Romanians. It was a Romanian contract gun. The Czechoslovakians made it for the Romanian Axis military, which shows how much history that I know. I didn't even know the Romanians were involved in World War II until I read about this gun. This is one of the cool things about old guns like this. You learn not just about guns, but you learn about history. It was made for the Romanians in around like 38, 39, maybe 1940, but prior to World War II is when this gun was made. And the way that you can tell that is on the serial number. If you have one of these VZ24s, and you look at the serial number, and if there is a letter followed by an R, then that means, I'm guessing the R stands for Romania, because that's what that says about this gun, that it was made for Romania. And since it's an F and they went in alphabetical order, I'm guessing it was probably an earlier one. And since they kind of started doing that around 1938, I'm guessing this rifle probably is a 1938 or at least a 39, something like that. You know, and it definitely looks its age for sure. You can see there's a lot of battle wear, I guess, maybe, on the stock. It's hard to know with these older guns like this. You never know if it was basically unused during the war and then some guy owned it in the 50s or the 60s and threw it around the back of his pickup truck, and you know, we're sitting here thinking like, oh man, look at all this battle wear, and it was just, you know, some guy living in Alabama that did all that. So you never know, but it's still neat to have these old war horses and see, you know, the character that's just, you know, that's been left on these guns, you know, for all those years, regardless of where they came from. It's one of my favorite parts about these old rifles. Now, I was talking earlier about this crest. This is something that was very common with the Mauser guns and other bolt actions too, like the Arisakas, is when these guns would change hands, or countries would turn over and change hands and stuff, they would a lot of times grind this part off, because that's where, you know, so like there was a crest that represented the, if I'm not mistaken, the king of Romania. And then when Romania went communist, you know, they said, oh, let's take all that off of there. So sometimes it's hard to find a Mauser that doesn't have all of this ground off. So that's a pretty common thing, which in a way it's part of the history of this gun, but also it kind of destroyed part of the history of it, you know, so it's kind of a bittersweet thing, but it's kind of interesting. Another thing too, when we first got this gun, when Dad first bought this gun, it was coated in basically like black paint, like someone had essentially like painted this thing, and I don't know if that was done later or that was something they did when they refurbished it or what, but it just came off really easily, and it was kind of coming off, so Dad just went ahead and took all of it off and left, you know, now you have kind of where you can see more of the original finish. There's a little bit of the bluing left right there, but just a neat looking gun. I will shoot it again. All right, let's go for a close target. Bowling pin. Another 2-liter blue one over there. Yeah, the straight bolt on this thing makes it so much easier to function. All right. Oh yeah, they both fell in the same spot. Makes it easier to pick them up. Oh yeah, almost forgot I got this target over here I'm supposed to shoot. There we go. Got a few hits on there. I think there might be some center block left over there. Try that. To the right of it. Got a piece of it. All right. I've also read that, well, a lot, of course it's a matter of opinion, but a lot of people seem to think that these VZ24s, these Czech Mausers, were some of the best Mausers ever made. Some people think they're even better than the actual authentic German K98s. The G98, I'm not sure if they're considered better than those or not, but you know, they seem very well made, and the, you know, the Czechs always seem like they've made really quality guns, and it just feels like quality. The bolt's not matching. It's got a different serial number on it, but you know, it seems to lock up fine and operate well. It seems reasonably accurate. The you know, the best that I can tell. I remember for a while we had a problem with it, where it had cosmoline or something getting in around the firing pin, and we'd get some light primer strikes, and part of that could have been some of that really old surplus ammo that we were shooting in it back in the early days when that stuff was still around. But for the most part, this thing is, you know, it's just been a great gun. I've shot it a bunch. I've shot this thing a ton. It's just a really neat gun. I will say, it's not, relative to the kind of conditions that soldiers experienced in World War II, it's not that cold today. But relative to my experience, it's pretty cold today. And I can tell you, just in this, whatever it is, 40-degree weather, already, like messing with those stripper clips and this bolt and stuff, it's like, you know, kind of hurting my hand a little bit. I could only imagine operating one of these things in, you know, 20-degree weather or 10 degrees. I guess they had gloves, but still, I'm sure a lot of hands were cut open and stuff like that. Okay. There's a little piece of center block right there. Am I hitting the stump, I guess? I'll go back over there again. The red plate. I will say, repeat something that Dad said. I can't remember if he said this in a video or not, but he made a cool point. Because while the Mauser has always been my favorite bolt action rifle, I guess period, really, because the you know, we basically, the Americans in 1903s and stuff, we basically took this action, so I love those too, but it's basically a Mauser action. But I've always thought that if I was thrown into combat back in that time period, the World War II or World War I or whatever, if I was forced to choose a bolt action rifle, I might go with the Enfield because you have the extra capacity. But Dad brought up an interesting point in favor of the Mauser, that while that first 10 rounds that you have would be somewhat of an advantage, that after that you still have to load it the same way. You still have to put it, so you'd be putting in 2 stripper clips instead of 1, and I don't know that it would have been that big of an advantage necessarily to have 10 rounds. So even though 5 rounds seems like such an incredibly low capacity nowadays, I don't know that it was a huge limiting factor. And of course, you know, in the World War II time period, at least, you know, with the Americans, we had the M1 Garand having the 8-round clips and semi-automatic. Now that I do think was an advantage over this rifle, where you can get quick follow-up shots, and because even if you have practice with the bolt action, even with the Enfield, because it was at the Mad Minute, those guys could really crank out the rounds with those things. You had to disrupt your sight picture a fair amount when you're putting a new round in. So I think that's one of the areas that the Garand really shined. But that being said, these things can be functioned pretty quickly. Let's see if I can see if I can crank out a bunch of rounds really fast. I think I'll shoot. I'm not gonna try to do any marksmanship with this. I'm just gonna shoot that big blue tank down there. I'm just gonna see how fast I can put rounds on it. Might be too cold to try something like this. It was decent, really fast. I feel like if you practice with it, you could probably really do really well. But right there was a good demonstration of I guess the disadvantage of not having that extra piece that locks up the bolt when the magazine is empty, because you know, if someone had been shooting at me, that last one would have been a waste of my time. I should have been reloading because it was empty and I wouldn't have known that. So, you know, they some of the things I like about this gun could have been a disadvantage in a combat situation, but since I don't think I'll be in any of those anytime soon, probably, and I definitely won't be with this rifle, so I get to like it even with some of its flaws, I guess, in that regard. So anyways, I guess that was all I was going to talk to you guys about with this thing, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. The VZ24 Czechoslovakian Mauser. It's a really cool gun. Don't go out and buy one because I still have a few more I need to get. So don't go buy them all up before I can get some. But great gun, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Since I'm still here, let me thank SDI for all their help. SDI is a fully accredited online gunsmithing school. Check them out at sdi.edu. We'd also like to thank Bud's Gun Shop and Federal Premium for all of their support. You can find us on Full 30 also now, and you can find the links to our Facebook pages and the other YouTube pages in the description of any video. So I invite you to check out the description in every video, or any video, you'll find what you need to know. And you'd better do it.